You know, it's always exciting to receive packages from China, especially from companies that are called Chuwi. So this is their LapBook Air. It's kind of in the budget territory, but it's still a little bit expensive for the hardware, but we're still excited. Come on, box, this doesn't open. So it is tackling the under $500 price point for a 14-inch notebook that is all aluminum. It's got some 8 gigabytes of RAM and what? Look at this. It's already set up. Hold on. All right, this is a little bit sketchy. There's something in the sound recordings. What? Sounds like someone's clapping. You can see this file was created on November 9th. This was actually before we received the review request email. I don't know, this is kind of fishy, but I guess a clean format will do. So let's review the Chuwi LapBook Air right after this. The new Master Liquid all-in-one coolers are available in 120 and 240mm stylish radiator sizes, with air balance fans included for best airflow and RGB sync on the pump and the fans that are controlled via this hub or through your motherboard. Check out the ML120L and 240L down below. I am pretty sure that the clapping in the beginning was for our videos, so thank you. So this thing is here because we want to explore what this sub $400 14-inch notebook gets you from like a standard user experience for people who want something just good enough for basic office work, for YouTube, email, etc. Now the price point may seem affordable, but for a machine with the same CPU like this Acer Aspire 1, you're looking at $200 with half the RAM and less storage, but still it's a significant price reduction, so I feel the premium with the LapBook comes through the build. The first impressions are positive, so we got great color scheme with this medium gray to hide the handling marks, although only the trackpad is slightly lighter in color, and it would be nice to have the keyboard stand out a little bit too, because it kind of gets lost in all that gray. The aluminum chassis, it feels great. It is a bit heavier than what I would perceive for a 14-inch notebook to be, that is also this thin, but I'm confident, you know, carrying this inside a backpack without it warping or bending or something like that. All the screws are properly aligned, and I didn't see any quality issues. Now, because this thing is slightly used, having found OS and everything pre-installed and the recording file that I found in the trash bin, there is a bit of a scuff on one of the sides, most likely from something sharp, maybe like a watch that hit it from the side, but other than that, it's held up pretty well. The illuminated logo on the lid is a nice touch, but the hinge here is way too stiff. You cannot open this with one hand, but the glass coating on the screen, while super reflective, does give off this quality vibe to prevent the panel from bending. Also, I would like to say that despite the really tough hinge, the screen wobble is just insane. I'm touching the desk right now a little bit, and you can see that wobble is extreme, and that also happens when you're typing on the screen, and because of that reflective nature of the display, it really helps to emphasize that wobble even more. This is a 1080p IPS panel with okay size bezels for 14-inch form factor. Brightness could be better though because of the reflections, but indoors it's great with pleasing colors. The turning point, however, is the backlight bleeding, which is severe and especially visible when turning on the machine when that logo pops up, and perhaps it's a reminder to basically lower your expectations. I am surprised with all the port selection, so we have dual USB 3 and a headphone jack that, by the way, sounds awesome. It compensates for the crappy stereo speakers that are louder on the right side and kills the stereo effect. We even have a micro HDMI port and a micro SD card slot to expand your storage because the internal 128GB of eMCC is limiting. Mine arrived already partitioned in two, allocating 40GB for the OS drive that seemed to be not enough when Windows decided to update itself. There is an additional SATA M.2 port at the bottom for 2242 drives, but transferring the OS onto it will be a challenge. The power brick is nice and small with a red LED beside the port to indicate charging. The charging speed is about, I would say, 10 to 15% for every half an hour, so it's a bit slow. And depending on your usage, battery life for me has been not that great. Playing a YouTube video on one side and browsing the web on the other, while Windows was updating in the background, I actually didn't know it was updating until, looking at the CPU usage, it's like 100%, and I'm wondering why, but it is because of Windows Update. I lost 40% of my battery in just 1 hour. And here's a depressing fact, I've had this for about a week, and for the last 3 days, it's been updating Windows. The keyboard layout is good with full-sized arrow keys and overall typing is great. I don't mind the slightly mushy keys, travel distance is perfect, and I do like that the FN button activates the standard F keys while all the useful things like volume, brightness, and media control are set to be activated by default. The backlight of the keyboard is very weak, but it does help a little bit in the dark. Now the trackpad, size-wise, it's good, but the surface is terrible. It makes my finger vibrate as I slide across regardless of pressure. The built-in clicks are super hard and actual cursor movement is not accurate, where it keeps moving about 10 pixels after I stop my finger, making basic navigation extremely frustrating. It is using the precision drivers, so gestures work really well, but the actual cursor movement sucks. You need a mouse for proper navigation. Now, performance is acceptable when you work within the limits of this Celeron processor. It is a quad-core model at 1.1 GHz, and it only clocks to 2.2 GHz while charging. Unplugging this thing from the wall gives us a maximum of about 2 GHz, so performance suffers. The 8 GB of RAM is enough for multiple tabs in Chrome, and you can even squeeze a few light games if you'd like. Just keep in mind the storage is the limitation unless you add your own. So it is a super weak machine, and we get to about 100% CPU usage while it's updating Windows. Unzipping files take forever, and I actually don't see the appeal of this running Windows OS at all. It seems like Chuwi has created the perfect machine for Chrome OS instead, which is a much lighter ecosystem, so putting Windows in here really just hinders performance and it clouds this entire hardware potential. The Wi-Fi module is dual band, but it's only a G, so the signal strength is weaker across a single wall that I'm not usually used to. The left side of the machine gets much warmer during like casual operation, so you can definitely feel that's where the processor is located. And their customer support is apparently unreliable. Their live chat feature on the website directs them to their Twitter page where someone responds to people's comments once in a while. So just keep that in mind and don't go in it feeling like you're gonna get the full support and the full experience, because it is a pretty cheap notebook. So for $350 to $400, the best thing about the LapBook Air is the form. So the build, the thin body, the screen, the additional storage options, and the keyboard. Performance-wise, for the basic user, I would say is totally fine, but it is hindered by the OS, and battery life has been disappointing because of all the damn updates that Windows is forcing on you. And disabling those things, it shows that I have about 70% left and under 4 hours of use. The worst thing about the machine is the touchpad, and it seems like I'm the only one who's experiencing some cursor issues based on other reviews that I've read. However, the surface itself and the button mechanism are truly terrible. Now, I remember buying my very first notebook. It was an Acer 14-inch, it was this thick, and the overall user experience was totally passable, given you understand the compromises for the price. And the thing about the LapBook Air is that it's a pretty package with flaws that is somewhat cheap. And so it's a good thing that we've come to the place where we can have machines like that, sub $400 price. But as long as you understand that you're gonna need to use a mouse and that Windows perhaps is not the best OS for this hardware. I also hope that customers are receiving brand new units of the laptop where you go through the setup yourself and not something like that, where it arrives, it's been used, there's files in the trash bin. That's sketchy, man, so sketchy. So that's it for my review of the LapBook Air. Let me know if you've experienced something similar in terms of receiving something that's already been used from any brand whatsoever. I'm Dmitry. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.